fertilization in angiosperm. So first we will discuss what is double fertilization. Double means two fertilization event taking place simultaneously. That means it involves fusion of two male gametes with the two different cell of the embryo sac. So here the two fertilization events are taking place simultaneously. That is why it is called double fertilization. This process was first of all discovered by Sebastian. So before diving into the detailed process of the double fertilization, we need to understand the reproductive parts of the flower. So the male reproductive part, so the flower you are seeing right now is a bisexual flower. In a bisexual flower, the male and the female reproductive parts are present on the same plant. The male reproductive part of the flower, which we called stamen, consists of broadly of the two parts. The solen distal part, which we called anther, which is the fertile part, and the sterile part, thread-like, which is called filament. In anther are produced the pollen grain, and inside the pollen grains are produced male gamete, which are involved in the fertilization. The female reproductive part, which we called pistil, consists of three parts. The proximal solen fertile part, which we call ovary, a tube-like part which we call style, and the receptive part is called stigma. So now we move on to the structure of the germinating pollen grain. So in the process of the pollination, the pollen transferred from anther to the stigma of the flower, and here it absorbs the moisture and germinate. It germinates by producing a pollen tube. In the pollen grain are present two cells, generative cell and the tube cell. The generative cell divides and produces two male gametes, and these two male gametes are suspended in the pollen tube. Now we will discuss the structure of the pistil and ovule. The pistil, the female reproductive part, consists of stigma, style and ovary. Inside the ovary are present ovules, which we also called megasporangium in case of the angiosperm. Inside these ovules are present embryo sac, which we call female gametophyte, and inside embryo sac is present the female gamete and other cells. So the type of embryo sac which is present in the angiosperm is the polygonum type of embryo sac, which is commonly 8 nucleate and 7 cell. That means it has 8 nucleus and 7 cells. So the cells, like it has egg cell, antipodal cell, central cell and synergids. Now we are moving towards the double fertilization. As we have discussed earlier, here two fertilization events happen in the same embryo sac simultaneously. So we have discussed earlier that the pollen tube has two male gametes. This pollen tube reaches into the embryo sac and it releases the male gametes, two male gametes. One fuses with the egg cell. Since the male gamete and the egg cell are haploid, when they fuse, they produce a diploid cell which we call zygote. And zygote, after multiple division, develops into the embryo. The second male gamete, which undergo the second fertilization, here it fuses with the central cell. In central cell there are two free nuclei which we call polar nucleus. Both are haploid. It fuses with the male gamete. So in second fertilization, three nucleus, two of polar nucleus and one male gamete fuses and gives rise to the triploid cell which we called primary endosperm nucleus. Since here three nucleus are fusing simultaneously, this event is also called triple fusion. So synagamy and triple fusion combinedly called double fertilization. So after the triple fusion we get endosperm nucleus, which after division produces endosperm, which is a nutritive tissue. What it does, it provides nourishment to the developing embryo. Now we move on to the steps of the double fertilization. So when we are talking about steps of the double fertilization, so as we know, the for fertilization the pollination is a prerequisite. So in pollination what happens, the pollen grain transfers from the anther to the stigma. After landing onto the stigma, it absorbs moisture and germinates. It produces the pollen tube. The pollen tube enters into the style, then to the ovary, to the ovule, and finally into the embryo sac. After reaching the embryo sac, the tip of the pollen tube ruptures and the male gametes are released in the embryo sac. One of the male gamete fuses with the egg cell and produces zygote. This is the true fertilization of syngamy. The second male gamete moves towards the center, fuses with the polar nuclei, produces a triploid cell which we call primary endosperm nucleus, which after division produces endosperm, which is a nutritive tissue. So if we talk about the summary, what is double fertilization? Two fertilization taking place simultaneously. One of the male gamete fuses with the egg, produces zygote, which produces embryo. Second male gamete fuses with the polar nucleus, produces endosperm. Endosperm provides nourishment to the developing embryo. Since the two fusion processes are taking place simultaneously, these are combinedly called double fertilization. Now moving towards the significance of the double fertilization. Since in double fertilization endosperm formation is taking place, so this prevents the wastage of the nutrients. And here also the simultaneous development of the embryo and endosperm takes place. So it provides nourishment to the embryo, and this process is also unique to the angiosperm. So that was double fertilization. Thanks for listening, and that's all from my side.